This is Triggered.
And you will be. Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Japan.
Yeah,
we do
some
have listeners in Japan.
Hello.
Hello, Japan.
Well, hello. Welcome to the podcast. And might I say, welcome to a very triggering podcast.
I mean, this one's, guys, I'm so glad the day has come that we're recording this because it is really bothering Chantal. We've been talking about this case for 3 straight days.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? I was telling Ashley this morning, guys, there are some cases that we do. And while we always respect the victims and, do deep dives to make sure that our facts are as correct as we can get them and all these things, there are some cases that just stick with us. And this was one of those cases that I'm doing the dishes and I'm thinking about it. I'm making dinner and I'm thinking about it. I'm walking about my day and I'm thinking about it. And so it's going to be so cathartic to just get it out. I'm going to sage my house afterwards and we're going to put all of this to bed. That being said, this case talks significantly about sexual assault and rape. So if that's not for you, that's okay. Come back on Tuesday. It'll be fine. We're not offended that you got to skip this one. If you do want to hear it, here we go. And I think we can jump right into it. The world is on fire, as everyone knows. And I hope that this hour of podcast is, I want to say reprieve, but
I don't know. I
don't know how to
can't even
fix
look at
this,
my
guys.
phone. Every time I get a breaking news, I'm like, I don't fucking care anymore.
I know, me
You
too.
want to put us in a fucking lockdown? Lock me down. You want to fucking make me not be able to afford food? Cool. Like, I think we're all just so fucking done with
we're so
nonsense.
Over it.
Like,
yeah. Last night I had to put TikTok away because my For You page transitioned so quickly into like prepper TikTok.
I know.
And Matt's like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, this woman's giving us 11 items that we need to have in our house. Number 1, canned tomatoes. And he just looked at me and I was like, you're right. I gotta put this away.
Listen, if COVID has taught us anything, my COVID experience was alcoholism because I started drinking because I was like, I'm gonna have a bottle of wine at lunchtime. Why? Because I fucking have nothing else to do.
And I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But you know what? I was actually just thinking about this while I was being inundated by all the energy lockdown, suspicions and threats and whatever. And I just thought we got COVID so wrong. No matter where you stand on the spectrum of like, the lockdowns were necessary or whatever. I'm not judging you. I just vividly remember sanitizing my groceries. Remember when that was the thing? When they were like, oh my God, you have to sanitize everything that comes into your house. And I was insane. I was at the door. I was at the door with my wipes, ready to go. Everything that came in my house got sanitized. And then it was like, 2 months later, they were like, it's airborne.
Yeah. I didn't even and here's the crazy shit that most people don't know is I was one of the first people in my community to catch COVID. I made CTV news. It was horrible. But so when they called me and they're like, you have COVID, it was very scary at first. But then I was like, yes, I feel like shit. Yes, this is fucking shitty. But at the same time, I was like, I don't fucking care. If this is what takes me out, take me the fuck out. Come on.
Yeah. And I know so many people lost loved ones to COVID and that's heartbreaking. And I'm so sorry.
I just mean for me personally, nothing scares me anymore.
The first time I got COVID, I broke a rib. And
Yeah,
it was
coughing.
pretty nasty. Yeah, it was pretty nasty, but we're here. We're
Yeah,
good.
we're good.
We did it. We made it through. We're gonna make it through whatever the fuck this is.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're gonna be here so long as we still have internet. So let's pray for that.
yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Because this is a big one. My daughter and I were at IKEA over March break. We were getting things for her new bedroom. It's very exciting. We had this brief encounter with a man, and after it was over, my 14-year-old said he gave me the creeps. Now, I've been trying to teach her to trust her intuition, so I asked her, "What about him gave you the creeps?" Because I want her to explore that. Like, if you're feeling creeped out, I want you to be able to name it so that you can look for it in the future. So she listed off like a whole bunch of things, from the way he walked to the way he looked at us. And all I said was like, you should always trust that.
Mhm.
Always trust that. I mean, don't treat people like shit just because you have the creeps, but make sure that you're protecting yourself at all costs. So we carry on. We're making our way around the literal rat maze that is IKEA.
Mm.
And she was carefully deciding which fake plant she wanted for her room. So she would like pick one up and place it on a shelf in one of those makeup bedrooms. And then she would try another one, stand back. Like, it was serious shit. And I'm just standing there being like, girl, you do you. Like, we got all day. This woman comes over and she's like, for the record, I think this one looks best. And my daughter smiled. She said, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking that too. I think it would just go better with my bedroom." Anyway, so they're having a chit chat, and her husband comes up to me and jokingly says, like, "We've lost them to the world of plants. That's serious stuff. We could be here a while." And I laugh, and we had a brief conversation. We go our separate ways, and my kid says they were so nice and she was so pretty.
Oh,
And I had already started writing this episode, and I thought about these two encounters my entire way home because my daughter felt safe with the couple because they were friendly, funny, good looking. It was a couple, but felt creeped out by the man earlier in the trip. And I was just focusing on, like, we have this idea in our head of what dangerous people look like and how they act. And we trust that we would immediately know if we're in danger. But the case that I'm covering today turns that entire premise right on its head. I'm covering the appalling crimes of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka.
Ken and Barbie.
Ken and
I
Barbie.
fucking hate that they labeled them Ken and Barbie.
And I mean, they look like Ken and Barbie from the 90s.
Piss me off. Listen, there's nothing Ken and Barbie about these two motherfuckers.
I know. I know. It's
I have
insane.
so many opinions, but go ahead.
We're going to get into all of them. It's 1987, and 17-year-old Karla Homolka is in her PJs grabbing a late night snack in a hotel lobby in Scarborough, Ontario. She worked at a vet clinic in St. Catharines, and there was this like pet vet convention that weekend. And a couple people from her vet clinic attended. She went with them. When she laid eyes on 23-year-old Paul Bernardo, who was grabbing a nightcap at the same hotel, sparks flew. Karla later described it as love at first sight. And within hours of them meeting, they were having sex in her hotel room.
Well, no judgment there. Not saying
The,
that I would be doing that, but I'm like, you know what?
I know. I
But
know. The
also,
only thing is, like, she was 17.
I mean, I did when I was 16, I dated a
Mhm.
21-year-old. We
Oh,
never
did
had
you?
sex though, just to clarify.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was 87.
Yeah.
By the time you were 17, you were basically an adult. You were doing
Yeah.
your own thing. So, whatever. Paul Bernardo was born in 1964 and raised in Scarborough in what looked like from the outside a typical middle class family. There was nothing immediately remarkable about his upbringing that would have signaled anything to what he later became. Although, I will say, behind closed doors, there were serious dysfunctions. It was later revealed, like when he was much older, that his father had sexually abused a family member. And this did cast a huge shadow over his teen years. And also, he found out in his teen years that Paul's dad wasn't Paul's dad. Apparently, his mom had had an affair with one of her ex-boyfriends, and that was his actual father.
The scandal.
Yeah, and people have, dug into the psychology of this and how that might affect a young man. But the truth is, like, his dad was kind of a piece of shit. Like, he did not treat the family well. He was pretty harsh on them. I did find in a couple sources where they talk about how he potentially molested Paul's sister, which is horrific.
I
But
mean, in
here,
those fundamental years, if you're, a teenager and you're seeing that play out or you're hearing that someone that you
yeah,
look up to, even if he is a piece of shit, you still look up to your parent, that could lay the framework for some deviation.
definitely, definitely. And what it actually ended up doing for Paul is from a young age, he developed this ability to present himself in a way that people trusted, right? And that's exactly what happens when you have turmoil at home. Then you're going to school and you just want to be like all the other kids. So you develop this masking that you're able to like turn it off and go to school and be Paul, the cool guy who's just chilling. So he learned that from a very early age. By his late teens and early 20s, Paul had begun to develop kind of like a double life. He attended university, held jobs, he did maintain relationships, but he was concealing this darker side of him that was starting to escalate. Karla Homolka was born in 1970 in Mississauga, Ontario. And her early life was far more stable. She was raised in a family that, by most accounts, was supportive and structured. Her father did lose his temper from time to time, but nothing insane. Like, it sounds like dad was maybe an angry man, and verbally abused her mom and stuff. But for the most part, it was just like, who, what other family wasn't going through that in the 70s?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. She was described as intelligent, organized, and deeply invested in her relationships, but on the borderline of obsessed. So she would like get a boyfriend and he was her entire world. That was it. There was this pattern in her personality that would later become more significant. Carla seemed to have this strong sense of identity. She would pull character traits from the people she was closest to, especially
Hmm.
her boyfriends. So this can be a really positive thing. Like if you have a strong career in business, this is great because then you can mold yourself to whatever environment that you're in and become successful. But she was pretty young. She didn't just want to be loved. She wanted to be like attached in a way that really blurred the lines.
She's mirroring, which is a tactic
Yes.
that psychopaths actually
Yes.
are able to do very easily.
And she learned how to do it so young.
Mhm.
Now, it was hard finding solid facts for some of Carla's early life stories, but according to quite a few sources, Carla's mom found Carla's dad having an affair and was basically like, I know how to fix this. Let's have a threesome, which is really interesting when you look at what goes on later in this case. And also, I just want to say the sanctity of marriage and relationships is something that I will always cherish and respect. So please, I know this will piss people off. Please don't take it in any kind of way. But like, if you have a girlfriend or a wife or a partner who is down for a threesome openly, I better not hear about y'all cheating.
Right?
Yeah, and I know it's not for everyone, and again, I'm not saying that that is something that if you're not open to it, that there's something wrong with your relationship. I'm just saying if you are, that person better be behaving. Okay, a little side story about Carla that I thought was interesting only because of what happens later. Sources say when Carla was young, her and her friend made a parachute for her pet hamster. So I want you to
I'm
picture like,
already pissed off.
you're gonna be so upset by this, like 10-year-olds were like, we have an idea. We're bored and we have a plan. So they like fashioned this little parachute, threw the hamster out the window, and surprise, surprise, he fell to his death.
I don't know. Let's carry on. That bothers me.
Well, they buried him in the backyard. And a couple weeks later, Karla begged her friend to help her dig up the body because she wanted to see what was happening to it.
So, like, that's pretty telling, you know?
You know what, though? Yes and no. And I'm just going to go out there and say, we're looking at what happened later and going, oh my God, it was foreshadowing for what's to come. I was interested in dead things. Like I remember poking at roadkill and being like, oh my God, like, what happens
Absolutely. But
here?
were you throwing hamsters out windows?
I was not. That
That's
was not my
fucked.
vibe. Yeah. Though Karla was this cheerleader looking beach babe blonde, she went through this dark time where she was super into the occult and dark magic and all that, which I only mention as a side because it's part of the story. But I don't want anyone to hear that and think that makes sense that she's a monster because she fucked around in the occult. Every occultist I've ever met is sweet
Yeah.
in their day to day life. So, anyway, okay. Between 1986 and 1990, a series of violent sexual assaults began taking place in the Scarborough area. Women were attacked in their homes and outside their homes and outside in parks and all over the place. And it was often in situations where they should have felt relatively safe. There were a few that occurred in the front yard and backyard of their family homes while their parents were sleeping inside.
I remember being at the grocery store seeing it was like a newspaper. I can't remember what it was, but it was like the Scarborough rapist.
Yeah,
I
yes,
remember
yes.
this.
Okay, so that's so interesting because that's exactly what this was.
Mhm.
The attacks were not random in the sense of being chaotic. They were controlled, methodical, and carried out by someone who knew how to minimize the risk of detection. But guys, trigger warning, they were brutal. Some reports suggest, and just skip ahead if you don't want to hear something awful. The rapist would attack the victim, act like he had left. So he would like go and hide in a bush, watch her come to her senses and get up, and then he would attack her again,
It's a it's
which is
absolutely horrible. Could you imagine those poor
no,
girls?
no. You
You're
think
like,
it's
"Okay, I
safe?
got away." You know, you're traumatized to the umpteenth degree, and all of a sudden, that monster comes back. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I think that
This
would
is
be almost more horrible than the initial attack because the
you know
weight of
what's
it.
coming.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah,
Poor babies.
terrible. This is real bad. It's reported that he would fill her vagina with sticks and stones and dirt.
Yeah, it's horrible.
As the attacks continued, media outlets began calling the perpetrator, like you said, the Scarborough rapist. The police set up a task force and they received 16,000 tips. 3 of those tips said it was Paul Bernardo. One victim worked with an artist to produce a composite sketch, and it's a dead ringer for Bernardo. Like insane. So they bring Paul in because they're like, all right, we got to talk to this guy. And he's charming as fuck. He's shooting the shit with the cops. They start
Yeah.
questioning him. And they're like, have you heard of the Scarborough rapist? He's like, oh my God, I did. It's awful. They show him the sketch and they're like, um, buddy, that's you. And he doesn't even deny it. He's like, my God, it's uncanny. It looks just like me.
It's fucking
And they're like,
ridiculous.
yeah, like, do you want to talk about that? And he's just like, "Oh my God, like, I can't believe how much that looks like me, but, like, guys, it's not me. How do we clear this up? Like, here, take my fingerprints, my DNA. What else do you need? Whatever you need, let me know." So he's like, "How do we clear this up? Fingerprints, DNA, whatever you need, I got you." And they take all these samples. They're like, wow, this guy's so willing to help us out. But DNA was still in its infancy and they had thousands of DNA samples to process. Because remember, they got 16,000 tips. 3 of those were literally called out Paul, but you got to think there were tons of other suspects. The cops were like, it ain't him. He's an accountant from Scarborough, charming young man. It's not him.
Part of me is like, the police just didn't want to believe it because, again, you know, profiling over the years has taught us
Mhm.
otherwise. But when you think of like a fucking rapist creeping around, you're not thinking of a charming, social,
No.
like man of the fucking world, just living his
Yeah.
life. You think of an uneducated, skeezy, but that's not the case.
Yeah. And this was the thing. Like, by the time that they were interviewing Paul, he had been with Karla for a bit. And so this like charming, good looking man comes in. He's like, let me show you a picture of my fiance. This is her family. Like he just did not fit this, these brutal attacks that they were covering. All right, back to Paul and Karla. Their relationship quickly became intense. Those who knew them noticed how strongly Karla attached herself to him, which we talked about earlier. She admired him and she was always eager to meet his expectations, whatever those might be. Over time, Paul began to reveal more about his kinks and fantasies and desires, which revolved a lot around control, dominance, and violence. It was around this time he started making comments about how he wanted a virgin. He was quite disappointed that Karla had lost her virginity before he came along, and he would let her know that. Like, he would make comments like, well, it's just not the same because you had already been with a man.
Like, get over yourself.
Yeah. And he would make these like offhanded comments about how fun it would be to keep a sex slave. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a sex slave? And instead of Karla being like, wow, these are severe red flags, she became increasingly involved because she had this sense of like, if I don't agree with all of his fucked up shit, he's going to leave and I'm going to lose this man that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
This aspect of the case is particularly hard to deal with because it challenges the initial narrative that she was simply manipulated or coerced. And guys, I want you to remember this because this is a recurring theme, and Ashley and I are going to talk about this hard at the end of this episode. The first major turning point involves someone who should have been completely safe within her own home. Tammy Homolka, Karla's younger sister, was just 12 years old when Paul moved into the Homolka home as Karla's fiance. Now, I want to note Karla's family was obsessed with Paul. All of them. Mom, dad, sisters. Karla has 2 sisters, just obsessed. They just thought he was the bee's knees. So when they were starting to get ready and planning their wedding and everything, Paul was like, I would love to live with Karla. And they were like, why don't you just move in? We have a big house. It'll be fine. So Paul moves in. Tammy is 12. Tammy was a sweet girl. She was kind and trusting. There was no reason for her to suspect that she was in danger.
Well, no, because she's
However,
looking at this guy and he's like her big
yes,
brother.
absolutely. She didn't have a brother. She only had sisters. This charming man comes in. Her sister's in love with him. Like, she trusted him. But it was around this time that Paul had expressed an interest in her. She's 12. Karla was fully aware of this interest. She wasn't only aware of it, but she was into it and she fed into it. Another trigger warning, my friends. This gets disgusting. Paul would sneak into Tammy's room while she slept and would masturbate over her onto her pillow.
Fucking disgusting.
He would have sex with Karla and pin a photo of Tammy on the wall so he could pretend it was her.
Like, I'm sorry, but in what fucking universe is any normal person allowing that to fucking exist? No.
It is so disturbing. And these are the points that I want you guys to remember throughout this case, because at the end, we're going to challenge you with it. Karla would willingly dress up in Tammy's clothes and pretend to be her.
Gross.
It's disgusting. We've said this before and I'll say it again over and over again. It always escalates. Like if you give in to these sorts of things, it's never going to be, oh, this is all he needs and he'll be fine. So Paul starts asking Karla for Tammy's virginity. And first of all, you can't give someone else's virginity away. So I don't know what in the fuck. Like this, when I was reading this, I'm like, what do you like? So Paul's coming to Karla going, I'd really like to take Tammy's virginity.
You know what I want for Christmas? Like, fuck off.
Quite literally.
Disgusting.
So Karla says, all right, let me work on it. It is December 23rd, 1990. Tammy is now 15 years old. Okay, so it's been a few years since Paul initially moved in and they've just been carrying on with this creepy fucking shit. The Homolka parents go to bed after an evening of family time, and Tammy, Karla, and Paul stay up to continue their evening. They're going to watch a movie. And Karla, after the parents went to bed, was like, do you want some boozy eggnog? And Tammy is 15 and is like, yes, I do want some boozy eggnog. Thank you.
Because obviously,
Well, yeah,
when you're that age and like someone's like, you want to sneak a little
it's
drink,
almost
you're like,
Christmas.
yeah,
Let's go. Mom
let's
and dad are
go.
in bed. And that's exactly completely normal 15-year-old behavior.
100%.
So Karla goes into the kitchen and she's getting the boozy eggnog and she's drugging Tammy's eggnog. She mixed a drink in the kitchen and crushed up, I think it's halcyon, or like some places say ketamine. I don't know if it's the same thing. But anyway, it was basically this drug, this
It's a
sedative.
tranquilizer. Yeah.
Yes, this sedative that she had gotten from the vet clinic that she worked at. And it is a serious sedative. So this is the kind of drugs that when your animal goes in for a procedure, a surgical procedure, they will give them this. So she gives Tammy the drink. Tammy passes out fast, real fast, because it's a serious sedative. And Paul and Karla set up a camcorder to record their assault. Yes, they rape Tammy. So I want this to be clear. Both Paul and Karla assault Tammy while she is sedated.
Disgusting. I
Because
really
Paul,
struggle with
yeah,
that.
I know. Because Paul asked Karla, he was like, I want you to. And Karla did anything Paul asked. But something happened that they didn't plan on. Tammy begins throwing up because, duh, when any of us go for any kind of procedure, there's a reason they tell you can't eat. And it is this reason precisely because it's very dangerous and you will choke on your vomit. And that's exactly what starts happening. Also, Karla had no clue what a safe dose would have been for Tammy. So she was just willy-nilly like, oh, I think this might be enough. Paul and Karla try to perform CPR, but she's unresponsive. And instead of immediately calling 911, they go into cleanup mode because they're looking around, they're looking at the camcorder, they're looking at everything going, fuck. So Karla is flushing the drugs down the toilet while Paul quickly dresses Tammy. They put all of their camera equipment away and drag Tammy over to her room. When first responders finally do arrive, Tammy is dead. There are so many things that frustrate me about this case. This is one of them because if this had been caught for what it was, it could have changed everything. During Tammy's autopsy, they see these massive bright red burns on her face and mouth. And you can see a photo of this in our graphic on social media. It's not little. The entire side of her face has a giant chemical burn. Now we know that these are chemical burns from the amount of drugs that were in her system. So you have to think she threw up and then her face was laying in this toxic vomit. Okay. Serious chemical burns. But at the time, the police asked Karla and Paul about this. And they're like, oh my God, it must have been rug burn from when we pulled her out of her bed to try to do CPR. And at the time, the police are like, oh, actually, yeah, that makes sense. No, I really need you guys to look at this photo. It is not rug burn.
Right.
The chemicals in the drugs like ate her skin off, essentially. But
So horrible.
they're like, okay. Now, at the time when the autopsy was performed, they only tested for illicit drugs. So meth, weed, etc. They weren't looking for sedatives or antidepressants or Tylenol and stuff like that. So they never detected the sedative.
Which is crazy.
Mhm. The Homolkas were devastated. A terrible accident that cost them their young daughter. Well, I mean, everyone was devastated except for Karla. She was
Right?
irritated. She told a close friend that she was so annoyed that her parents were still sad about Tammy and that they had spent a chunk of the money that was set aside for their wedding on Tammy's funeral expenses.
You are a fucking psychopath. Like, you're a monster. Because you know what I wouldn't be fucking doing is going through with a wedding when
Right?
something so horrible just happened.
How could you, like, any normal sibling would have been like, you know what? Maybe we'll get married in a few years.
And if it's that important, go to the courthouse, elope, do it on the
Yeah.
DL. Like,
You don't, oh,
fuck
no, no,
off.
no, 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 no. Awful. It's awful. And there's a letter that she wrote to a friend being like, oh my God, I can't believe they spent that much money on her funeral. Like that was for me. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah. All right. January 12th, less than a month after Tammy's death, Paul is getting restless. Tammy was gone and she was his muse. So he did what any monster would do, picked up a 16-year-old girl, brought her back to the home, and raped her. But he let her go. Karla claims that she hid behind the curtains during this, which again, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about the fact that in each one of these attacks, guys, Karla could have stopped it.
Karla is not stopping it because she's getting off on it. It's quite
Yes.
clear. You're hiding behind a
Yes.
curtain watching a girl get raped?
Yes.
No.
And then it escalated. And again, we see this all the time. On June 6th, 1991, Karla invited a 15-year-old girl she worked with at the clinic over to the house. She works with this girl. They hung out for a bit. She's like, hey, do you want a drink? Like a real drink? And the girl, again, 15, is like, yes, I do want a real drink. Karla drugged her exactly like she had drugged Tammy with no consideration that they literally killed the last girl they did this to.
She fucking knew that there was a good chance this kid was going to die, and she did it anyways.
She did not care. She did
Mm-mm.
not care. Now, I say luckily very loosely, but this girl did wake up from after the assault and they were like, oh my God, you passed out. You were so drunk. And she didn't know. So she did survive. She went on her way, but she was raped while she was unconscious. Karla needed to keep her man satisfied. That's all Karla cared about. That's all she thought about. But it just started to seem the more she found ways for him to fulfill his pedophile needs, because let's just be clear about this. They were children. He wanted more. He was never satisfied. So he'd be like happy for a couple minutes after the assault, and then it would go right back into him wanting more. Only a week or so after the attack on the girl from the vet clinic, Paul was out in Burlington, Ontario in the middle of the night looking for license plates to steal. Paul had a hard time holding down a job. So like he was a registered accountant, but he would go from like firm to firm. He wasn't doing super well in the accounting aspect of this. So he had this side gig where he would cross the border into the US and smuggle cigarettes across. And he would regularly steal license plates so that when crossing, if they did run the plates, because remember, guys, this is like late 80s, early 90s, 9/11 hadn't happened. We didn't have border control the way we do now. And his thought was like, if I have different plates on, they'll never be able to trace it back to me. It doesn't look
And
like
at,
I'm crossing the border.
at that point, you didn't actually need a passport to go to the States.
No, you could just cross.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. They weren't even, and it's so hard for us to remember that there was a time in our lives that was like this, but like they weren't even stopping your car. You could just go freely from the States. They might stop the odd car, but it wasn't like it is today.
No.
Anyway, so he's fence hopping from backyard to backyard when he sees a young girl sitting at a picnic table in her backyard. The girl was 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. See, Leslie had been out with her friends, and her parents had this rule where if curfew came and you weren't home, the doors were going to be locked. And I'm into this. Like, some
Mhm.
people might be like, oh my God, that's awful. No, I'm into this. Like, action, consequence. She's 15 or 14. Like, you understand. So Leslie was late and was riding out the evening hours in the backyard until morning when her parents would let her in. And she did this all the time. She was constantly late for curfew. And her parents would basically be like, hope you like the picnic table, because that's where you're camping for the night. And then around like 5 or 6, when a parent would get up, she'd go inside, crawl into her bed, get some sleep. So Paul comes out of the bush in her backyard, which immediately I would lose my mind. But Leslie's like, hey, what are you doing back here? And Paul says, well, I'm robbing homes in the neighborhood. And we got to remember, Leslie was a good kid, but she was in that transition stage where, you liked the bad boys, you liked playing on the edge. She was kind of like, okay, cool. Do you have a cigarette? And he says, yes, but they're in my car. Come with me. As you probably already know, he was not getting her a cigarette. When they got to the car, he pushed her into the car and began the drive back to his place at their home, because Karla and Paul had their own place by this point. Karla was waiting. What followed was 24 hours of brutal rape and assault on Leslie. Karla would film, participate, and also just carry on with her life like there wasn't a 14-year-old tied up in the basement. She would go read, she would go for walks, she did some groceries. Like, it was just a regular day for her while a child was tied up in their house. On June 16th, Karla and Paul are in a bit of a panic. It's Father's Day, and the Homolkas were going to be coming by for lunch. They had initially discussed letting her go, but Karla and Paul were idiots and didn't cover their faces ever. Like, so they started to think, like, she's going to go to the police, and she knows where we live. Like, she saw where they pulled in. She knows what we look like. We did all this stuff. She knows that we were recording her, and they decide they can't let this girl go.
Now, can I just intervene here for a sec?
Absolutely.
Because I don't think this part of the story is 100% true. I don't think they ever intended on allowing this girl to go, because there was no point where she wouldn't have not recognized them. You also filmed it. Like, no, this was
I
part of
agree.
your fucking plan.
I agree. And we have to remember the whole story that I'm telling you, basically from this point on, we got this information from Karla and Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul takes a black electrical cord and strangles the beaten and battered Leslie to death. He then hid her body in a corner in the basement and went upstairs for Father's Day.
Can you imagine being Carla's parents after all of this comes out, and you
No,
think back to that day you're having
no.
your lunch and there's
With your daughter.
it's meanwhile Leslie's poor family is looking for her. Like,
Yep.
it's so sad.
It's so sad, and it's just disgusting. Like, and this is one of those things that over the last couple of weeks, as I've been writing this, I think about this when
Mhm.
I'm doing my dishes, when the kids are here visiting, when I'm on the phone with a friend. I just think, like, they just carried on, and Leslie's body was in a corner in their basement. It's horrific. On the 17th, so the next day, Karla goes to work, and Paul spends the day dismembering Leslie. He cut her body into about 10 pieces. Then He set her body parts in concrete in buckets and drove her out to a local lake and threw the chunks of concrete into the lake. That was how he disposed of Leslie. 12 days later, on June 29th, Karla and Paul had their fairy tale wedding. And I want you to think Disney princess.
I could fucking puke watching their wedding
I
day.
know. Oh my God. Horse-drawn carriage, the biggest, poofiest 90s wedding dress you can think of, hair up to the sky, like
Yeah.
there was no expense spared. What Karla wanted, Karla got. As they were exchanging vows, a man canoeing on Lake Gibson made a gruesome discovery. See, Paul's a fucking idiot and thought that the concrete had set, but it hadn't completely.
So it fucking dissolved.
Exactly. So this means when he put the unset concrete in water, it dissolved over those 12 days. And so it started to break apart. And when I look at their wedding photos, it makes me sick because they're smiling, getting their wedding photos taken, and investigators are pulling pieces of Leslie from the lake.
So
Same day,
gross.
same time. That night, Karla and Paul head out on their honeymoon, and I'm sure Karla thought that nothing could possibly ruin this perfect moment, but boy, was she wrong. And I hope this ruined her. I don't think it did, but I hope that for a second she was like, my perfect day is not perfect. So they get to wherever the fuck they are. And Paul says, I have a secret to tell you now that we're husband and wife. Carla's like, all right. He says, I am the Scarborough rapist. He's been doing this for a long time. Remember, he's been doing this for a long time. Like this was going on for years and years and years.
What a wedding gift.
Uh-huh.
Now that we're married, like,
Yeah.
you're expecting, like, I'm actually a fucking millionaire, you know? Like,
This is what you're hoping for? No, no.
but
He's
you
like,
know
I'm the
what?
rapist.
Not shocking because you're a fucking
No.
murderer. And she knew he was a
Yeah.
rapist.
Well,
Boo-hoo.
right? Okay. So anyway, so this has been good. Like he started those attacks in 87. It's now 1991. So it's been a while. He tells her, just so you know, they took my DNA. I look like the composite sketch, but no one's ever come after me. No one's ever called me back. The next murder they commit is just as heartbreaking as the other two, but this one makes me so angry, and I'll explain why. Kristen French was 15 years old. Now, when I was reading about Kristen, I was like, this is a girl after my own heart. She was super cautious. So she was the girl that would tell her friends, like, hey, are you going on the bus by yourself? Don't go on the bus by yourself. There's that rapist. She was obsessed with the case, but not from a like morbid standpoint. She was obsessed with the rapes because she was like, I got to protect my people. I got to be super safe. I want to remind my friends, you can't just be walking around by yourself. She was a student at Holy Cross Catholic School and she wore a uniform. And that's exactly what Paul wanted.
That's his type.
Yeah, of course. Unlike their previous crimes, this one happened in the middle of the day and was witnessed by many people. Kristen was walking home from school in broad daylight. I cannot stress how much this was like middle of the day in a suburb. Okay. Paul and Karla pull up slowly, and Karla hollers out the window. She's like, hey, do you think you could help me? We're lost. And this is the part that makes me so mad about this particular bullshit. Kristen was a careful girl. She would have never approached a car if it weren't for the smiling young blonde woman asking for directions.
Right.
Karla tricked Kristen into letting down her guard. And this was just one of many instances where it is proof to me that Karla was just as much to blame in all of this as Paul. So Karla gets out of the car, acts all lost. She spreads a map out on the roof of the car. And while Kristen is focusing on the map, trying to help Paul slips out of the driver's seat, circles around the back of the car, and pushes Kristen into the back seat and slams the door. They brought Kristen home, and she was so smart. Initially, she just did what she was told, hoping that they would let her go. And they told her, "We will let you go." But after, and this is so awful, 3 days of being raped all day, she was repeatedly drugged. They would shove her in a closet at night. Kristen started to resist. She was starting to get to the point where she was like, "No, don't touch me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm done. You got to
She
let me
can't
go."
take it anymore.
Exactly. And Paul hated that.
Mhm.
So, as a threat, he showed Kristen the tapes of him and Karla assaulting Leslie, told her, "This is what's going to happen to you if you don't cooperate." It was at this time that Paul and Karla start beating her over and over and over again. So, up until that point, for the 3 days, I mean, it was violent, it was awful. They were raping her. Karla was using items to rape her. It was horrific. But at this point, they start with just the violence. They start beating her. And again, as part of my big reveal at the end of this case, I need to make a point here. During Kristen's captivity, twice Paul left the house. Twice Karla could have let her go and escaped herself. 2 times Paul was gone for more than 30 minutes. And Kristen begged, begged Karla. And Karla did not give a fuck.
Well, she didn't give a fuck because she was just as fucking insane and twisted and psychotic as he was. So she
Yes.
wasn't this innocent fucking bystander.
No, no. And I mean, we'll talk about it soon, but Karla, when this all comes to a head, says that she was just as much of a victim as these girls. And I'm just telling you all this shit so that you see that that is garbage. Karla was just as much of a monster as Paul.
Mhm.
And this is my personal opinion. I know it's Ashley's opinion. I don't care what anybody says. This is proof.
I will die on the hill that, yes, he was the Scarborough strangler. However, he wasn't a murderer until this fucking bitch comes into play.
It's true.
And it's kind of one of those things where I think all rapists and sex offenders are cowards. And I think what was going on here was he was too much of a fucking pussy to kill them, although he had those fantasies and wanted to dominate and be a fucking fucktard. But I think he needed somebody just as fucked up to go through
Mhm.
with it because he's a piece of shit and he met his match.
Yep, I agree. Similar to Father's Day, it's now Easter. And Carla and Paul needed to go to the Easter family celebrations, of course,
Well,
because
of
there's
course.
there's nothing like celebrating the resurrection of our Lord and Christ after you've brutally raped a young girl for 4 days in your house. Anyway, so Carla starts saying, like, we can't leave her here. She's going to escape. She's going to get out. Now, according to Carla, they argued about whether they were even going to go to Easter. Paul, from the sounds of it, did not want to go. He was like, "Why don't we just tell your family we're not feeling well and we'll deal with this Kristen situation?" But Carla was like, "No, we've been in our house for 3 days off and on. We need an alibi. We have to go to Easter." So, in the end, just like Leslie, Paul strangled Kristen to death. They washed her body in the bathtub, cut off all her hair before leaving her in a ditch in Burlington. They wanted to leave her body in Burlington to try to divert attention away from where they lived because they were not in Burlington. On April 30th, a few weeks after, a man looking for cans came upon Kristen's naked and battered body in the ditch. He says she was black and blue. Police identified her quickly. She had sustained an injury when she was younger to her pinky finger. And so immediately they knew that this was Kristen. So police set up a task force for this because not only do they have a serial rapist running around, but now they've got 2 murdered teens. And I'm not forgetting about Tammy, but at this point, they still thought that was an accident. So
Right.
Tammy is a victim, but for the police, they thought there were two girls. And tips start pouring in, just like they did for the Scarborough rapist. A couple of tips put the bullseye right on Paul Bernardo again. One came in from an ex girlfriend of his who was like, "This is Paul. I promise you, this is Paul." The other one came in from his childhood best friend, which I'm like, if your girlfriends and your childhood best friends are calling in being like, this kind of sounds like Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the best friend was basically like, listen, he's violent. I know he beats his wife. He's short tempered. The way he speaks about women and girls is atrocious. Like, please look into him. Now, they had already spoken to Paul years before. Remember the sketch? Like, I will
Mhm.
never forget the sketch. Guys, please look at the sketch and look at a picture of Paul. It's insane. So police show up to this beautiful home in this beautiful neighborhood. And we know it was the same home where Leslie and Kristen had been tortured and murdered, but I digress. They knock, knock, knock on the door. Good looking young Paul comes to the door. His petite, beautiful blonde wife steps in behind him in the doorway. They're like, "Come on in. Can I get you a coffee?"
I
Police
could
tell him,
fucking barf.
"I know, it's so bad." Police say, "Paul, your name has come up again." And again, Paul is charming and he's like, "Guys, listen, I know the sketch looks like me. I don't doubt that you got tips coming in because I look like the sketch. But I promise you, this is just an uncomfortable coincidence. I gave you my DNA. I've been cooperative. Look at my life. Look at my wife. Tell me, do you really think I'm raping and murdering young girls? Especially after what happened to my sweet sister in law?"
Mhm.
And it works. Police leave the house being like, "Come on, guys. Like, maybe these tips are coming in from like bitter people who look at his life and think,
Jealous people, yeah.
yeah, yeah, because they cannot believe for a second that they have anything to do with this." Karla later said the moment that the police left, she and Paul went through the whole house collecting all of the tapes because remember, they had videotapes of Tammy's murder, Leslie's rapes, and murder, and Kristen's too. Among many, 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 many other women they had assaulted but didn't kill. Paul told Karla at the time, "If they ever come back here, you need to destroy all the tapes." And this says so much about them because
Right.
why the fuck are you keeping those?
Well, because then they can rewatch them and probably have sex,
Exactly.
and it's gross. It's fucking crazy.
But like, this just so shows how depraved they were because what the fuck? From mid 1992 until January 93, Paul and Karla continue raping and abusing women, although not killing any of them.
As far allegedly
As
not
far
killing it.
as we know, yes, yes. Ashley has thoughts.
I have thoughts, but
They hired a lot of sex workers because most of the times sex workers won't report abuse.
no.
However, in January 1993, Karla was admitted to the hospital because Paul severely beat her with a mag light flashlight. So those are the heavy ones. Ashley doesn't give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck.
I
You
know. I know.
fucking monsters. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
fuck off.
Yeah. And this seems to be Karla's kind of tipping point. So, and I will say the beating was atrocious. Like, again, I have a photo of this on our social media. She's black and blue.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't give a fuck, but she's released from the hospital and she doesn't go home. She stays with her aunt and uncle in Toronto. But in February 1993, Paul's DNA sample that was taken in 1989 finally makes
Right.
it to the front of the line.
Fuck me.
And bingo, he was a match to the Scarborough rapist cases, every single one of them.
Fuck finally.
Police go straight to Karla, who's staying at her family's. Karla answers their questions about Paul being a rapist, but they ask her questions like, have you ever cut any girl's hair? Have you ever been in the Holy Cross Church parking lot? And initially, Karla lies and says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But After police leave, Karla breaks and tells her aunt and uncle everything. And I gotta give it to her aunt and uncle because can you fucking imagine?
No,
You're
no.
just you're thinking that your sweet niece is being physically abused by her husband. "Oh, honey, come stay with us." And then she opens up about all this shit.
Like,
What?
no.
So she tells them everything. She's like, "Also, we have videotapes of Paul," and she was like, "We have videotapes of Paul assaulting Leslie and Kristen."
Uh-huh.
They call her a lawyer, and on Valentine's Day, 1993, her lawyer goes to the police with all of the information. Paul is arrested. Now, again, he's originally arrested for the rapes.
Mhm.
After it all comes out, what Carla says, they're like, cool. So they do a months long search at the Bernarda Homolka home. And when I say search, I'm like, guys, they ripped up carpet. They collected every single hair that was in that house and bagged it. They ripped walls apart. They went nuts. But they can't find any of the tapes. So Carla's like, they're in there. I don't know where they are, but they're in there.
Mhm.
They do find a tape, and initially they think it's Leslie. They're like, "Oh my god, it's her." But it was Paul and Karla raping a different teen.
Right.
Now, no, 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 no. Let's get into Karla. I know you wanna
Fucking
get into
bitch.
Karla.
You know I'm sitting on this and I'm
I
like,
know, I know. Alright. Karla tells this sad story of a battered wife who was just doing what her husband told her to do. She said he beat her regularly, and guys, I actually don't doubt that for a minute. I think he did beat her regularly. She tells this horrific tale, like, to, like, "Poor me, like, I'm a victim too." And police
mhm.
are like, "Okay, okay, we get it." And they even felt bad for her. They saw her as a victim. They saw her as, like, if she didn't do what he said, he would beat her. So she makes a deal with prosecutors,
This
a
is the
plea agreement.
sweetheart deal of the fuck like, this deal pisses me off to this I think about it.
If you're not Canadian or you don't know this case, you're about to be so mad, you're not even ready. She was charged with 2 counts of manslaughter for Leslie and Kristen, with 10 years to be served consecutively and 2 years for her part in the death of her sister, Tammy. 12 years total, guys.
So, what I feel like we kinda skipped over this quick. So, basically what she said was, "I'll tell you where the tapes are, but I want a deal." So, the reason she got that deal was because she told them, "I'll give you the tapes, and then you can lock them away." And that was like they didn't have enough evidence to give him, well, what life is in Canada. But she made this fucking deal, you guys, by saying, "I'll show you the tapes. You'll have everything. You know, you can prosecute him. I was a victim." And then they saw the fucking tapes.
And she didn't even when she gave them where the tapes were, they weren't the tapes of Leslie and Kristen. Those were still missing.
She was laughing and playing and having a great
Oh,
time in
yeah.
those videos like a
Oh,
fucking
yeah. Oh, yeah.
psychopath.
So, anyway, she didn't even provide them with the tapes they were looking for. So, I'm jumping around a lot here, but it's because I'm worked up. So, let's go back to Paul. Paul's in deep shit. We've got Carla pulling the victim card, and during discovery, Paul's lawyer asks him, "Is there anything else you haven't told me?" And Paul says, "All right, you need to go to my house. In the light fixture in the ceiling in our master bedroom are tapes. Don't watch them yet, but I need you to go see if they're still there or if the police got them because that will change everything." And the lawyer literally does what he says and doesn't watch them. So he puts them in a box in his office where they sat unwashed and untouched for 18 months.
Can you fucking imagine?
Nope, nope. And you might be asking what the fuck, he can't do that. But sources and speculation say that because he didn't watch them, that he was able to slip through a loophole in the rule of discovery.
Yeah.
And I have like 412 questions for this lawyer, but they're all basically trickle down to what the hell is wrong with you?
Honestly, this whole thing makes my fucking blood boil.
It's insane. It's insane. So the lawyer says he didn't watch them until May, which was after Paul had been charged with murder and after Karla had taken her sweetheart deal.
Mm,
And when he watched them, he knew he fucked up and he ended up resigning from the trial shortly after this.
because obviously.
Yeah. So he brings the tapes to the cops and they're like, fuck. Immediately, fuck.
Yep.
Because in those tapes, guys, Karla is having the time of her life, assaulting, raping, and later murdering Kristen and Leslie.
She is and please don't come at me for this, but she is like the fucking catalyst in all of this, and I will die
Yep.
on that hill. She
Yep.
was the one that fucking provided a lot of these victims for her to sit and watch her husband fucking murder and rape them, and I don't
Yep.
care.
Yep. I don't care. Paul's trial begins 1995. And although the courtroom did not see the videos of Tammy, Leslie, and Kristen, they heard the audio. And like
Oh,
Ash said earlier, Carla's having a great time, guys. She's not being forced into this. She's having a great time. And they couldn't go back on the deal they made.
which is
She served, yeah, it's insane. This is insane. She served 12 years. She was released from prison in 2005. And
yeah. Mhm.
the Canadian government gave her a fresh new name and identity. Start over, Karla. Go ahead. Rumor has it she lives in Montreal and has 3 children.
That she is allowed to go to the school and volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
She is a sexual fucking predator and fucking murderer. And you're gonna sit here and tell me that she's allowed in a school with a new fucking name? Get the fuck out of here. I could fucking scream.
It's awful. It's awful. I can't understand it. It literally brings shame to me as a Canadian.
Yeah. Yep.
Paul admitted to raping many, many women, but he would not admit to killing any of the girls because their actual murders were not taped.
Right. But here's the thing. This is very interesting to me because really, how do we know there weren't more victims?
Yeah,
You
we
know,
don't.
he wasn't
We
willing
don't.
to admit to murdering those girls.
Hmm.
There's a good chance we have so many fucking missing girls, young girls that have never been found. There's a good chance there were more. And
Yeah.
this fucking bitch is out living her life
Oh,
and
yeah.
an actual very good life because she's married uh to a lawyer.
Yeah. She's 55 today. And she's literally carrying on the way Ashley and I are today, just living her life. Paul was found guilty for 2 counts each of first-degree murder and a slurry of other serious charges. He was sentenced to 25 years with the possibility of parole. However, every single parole hearing, he's been laughed out of the room. I do hate that the families have to continually deal with that every 5 years,
Fucking
but
crazy.
here we are. Basically, Paul says the girls died at the hands of Karla. Karla
Mhm.
says the girls died at the hands of Paul.
Okay, so I actually do think, and this is my opinion and my opinion only,
Mhm,
she killed
mhm,
them. And you know why? Because she sat there, woe is me,
mhm,
rah, rah, rah. Um, but the murders were never videotaped. And I truly
mhm,
think she played this fucking her cards so well because she's
mhm.
such a manipulative fucking bitch. That's like an understatement. There's a good chance she could have been the one.
Yeah,
We don't know.
honestly, Ash, I agree with you. I truly believe Karla got away with murder. I understand that women are abused every day and it's hard to leave. Guys, Karla had multiple, 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 multiple opportunities to leave.
She involved herself in incestual rape.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You
Didn't
are
care.
disgusting.
Did not care. She could have got away so many times. She could have saved Kristen's life. Again, Paul left twice during those attacks. She had, and this is the thing, guys, I really need you to focus on this. She had all the support in the world. She had her parents, who loved her and supported her. Think about her aunt and uncle. She had family all over the place. She could have got away. And it is sickening to me. Do you know what bothers me the absolute most? And then we will wrap up.
Hmm?
She did not get away until he hurt her.
Yeah, because now she's the
We didn't
victim and
care.
she's
Yeah,
sad. Poor
that hurt
baby.
me. And then she had the what? The willpower to get away? Fuck you, Karla.
Wasn't
Karla,
willpower. She
or
fucking,
whatever it was.
this was just another manipulative plot for her to get revenge on her fucking, like, no. Like, the fact that a man married this woman makes me wonder, like, what the fuck
I
is
know.
wrong with the person who's you knew you're a you live. Like, no.
I can't imagine having children with this woman.
Right?
And I'm sorry. Like, I truly hope that her kids don't know. And I hope they never know.
I
Because,
know.
like,
It's not their
truly,
fault.
it's not their fault. But, like, her husband, how the fuck did you have kids with her?
It's fucking
You're
disgusting.
sick too.
Yeah.
Well, those are our opinions because, Karla is a fellow Canadian. Paul is locked up in an institution in Quebec, a medium security institution.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
moved.
Well, there are no
Not a
fucking
big
young
deal.
girls in there, and he's such a pussy. I hope someone fucking gets him eventually.
Yeah, I know. Me too. So that was the horrific, absolutely horrific shit stain of a case on Canadian history of Karla and Paul. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. I don't know what
Sort
to
of.
say.
I know.
Sort of. But either way, thank you so much for listening. We love you. And we'll see you all on Tuesday.
Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.